Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. If you're returning, welcome. So I'm just coming with another video today, just giving you a few quick tips that I've been learning in my social work journey so far. Hopefully some of them are helpful, and yeah, let's get straight into this video. So tip number one, equipment. Listen, yeah, you need pens, you need your notebook, you need your calendar up to date, you may need a laptop, you need your phone chargers. Equipment. Don't think, yeah, I know, like, I work from home 4 days a week and not everyone gets that privilege in social work, but you need equipment. This is how you stay organized, this is how you stay on top of things. I'm in kind of a bad habit at the moment of writing down notes and things on my phone, and then I'm just completely forgetting what to do. But there's actually a notebook that I have that I think I've shown you guys before. Let me just get it, be back in a moment. Okay, so a notebook that I do recommend everyone gets. I bought this at the start of my 100-day placement, and as you can see, like, I need to buy another one, but this book is amazing and it's called Things to Do. You know, it keeps you on top of, you know, your workload, and it looks like this, and it's absolutely amazing. As a social worker, you need to be organized, and it's just something I'm naturally a very organized person, but the more I go on in this role, I'm like, when your workload is high and you have a lot of things to do, it can be so easy to fall behind. So get organized, get your equipment, and yeah, that's tip number one. Tip number two, be on time. So I know some people are gonna be like, oh no, that's fine for me, you know. Be on time for your meetings, even if they're virtual. Be on time for your visits. And one thing I've started to do now is I'm trying to get to visits at least 10 or 15 minutes before, because this week particularly, the kind of craziness that you wouldn't even believe has happened. For example, on my way from one visit to try and get to another, this restaurant just blew up in a particular area, and there was a massive fire, which meant that I was stuck there for over an hour and I couldn't get to my next visit. Another thing that happened this week was there was an accident on the bus. The bus jerked forward, and including me, we all went flying and nearly hurt my neck. You know, just aim always to be on time, because you never know, like, what your day is going to be like. You can't predict traffic, and it's just something that it just develops your character, and it's something that also people do take note of. People take note of this, and there's no one, it's not going to stop anyone, you know, whether it's a professional you're working with, whether in my instance a foster carer I'm working with, not going to your team manager and saying, actually, you know, she's always late, or, you know, like, yeah, I'm always having to remind her of things. Like, just try and be on top of things and try and get places early. And yeah, number three, your name, once you become a registered social worker and you have your social work number, that your name and that number follows you throughout your career. So you're thinking, yeah, I know this, but I've seen some situations now where I'm just like, listen, it takes the smallest thing for someone to pull you up. And as I was saying, in terms of being on time and people making note, people, they're watching you. People are always watching you, whether it be the manager that you think you get along so well with, or whether it be, you know, this child. People are watching you, and at any point someone can turn on you. And this is just the work world. You know, you say something to someone you think's a friend and they go and tell your manager or something like that. Anything can change. But as a social worker, your name follows you everywhere, and I think it's something that we need to be very integral with in our work and just everyday ethic, what we're doing online. You know, her little social worker friend got caught out saying they were saying that they were sick and they were actually on holiday somewhere. You know, like, your name means something when you become a social worker, and it really does carry you everywhere in your career, especially for those who do court work, those who understand that when that judge is seeing the social worker's name, that blame or that responsibility is being placed on you. So just remember that your name carries you everywhere. Number four, take care of yourself. Like, it sounds so simple, but sometimes it can really be so hard for some people. I mean, it's something I've always been working on anyway. But take care of you. Make sure you're eating properly, make sure you're sleeping, Make sure you know you're exercising if exercising is something that you enjoy, going for walks, going on spa breaks, going out with your friends. Even though you're tired, making time to actually see your friends, see your family, do stuff on your weekends and not just sleep it off. Even though that is needed sometimes, but really learn to take care of you, especially if you haven't yet crossed over into the social work world yet and you're not a registered social worker yet. Get in the habit of taking care of yourself. And that doesn't always mean spending money to do something, especially for some of you that may have children, you may have other commitments. That could just be you saying, you know what, this morning I'm just going to go for a walk, or I'm just going to, do you know what I mean? Do something, but take care of you. And I've been screaming this for years, but I'm a meal prepper, and every Monday now I prep for at least 4 days in the week, because that just keeps me going. That allows me to monitor what I'm eating, because I need energy to do this job. I need to be eating the right things, you know. Even with the gym now, like I've become a gym head again after 4 years of inconsistency, but like going to gym in the morning, going to the gym after work when I can, and making sure that I am taking care of myself, booking holidays. As you guys would have seen, your girl just came back from Tenerife not long ago. You know, I'm booking a spa day soon. Like, just doing things to make sure I'm taking care of myself and it's not just work, work, work. Which I believe is tip number 4, is boundaries. So this is something that, you know, is preached about. This is something that I think everyone coming into maturity needs to learn, how to say yes and how to say no. And that also applies in your work. That sometimes if you're being asked something and you can't do it, say no. And if you can, go the extra mile where you can and say yes. But even just sometimes around people you're working with, professionals, and it can sometimes feel like you're obliged to do some things, that you're obliged to respond within 24 hours, or do you know, unless it's an emergency. But I just think it's something that needs to be developed, and that's boundaries. We need to learn how to put boundaries around ourselves, because it not only protects us, it protects other people, and boundaries are good. And on the topic of boundaries, there's an amazing book that I've been reading on boundaries that's like this, and it's by Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. John Townsend, and it's really good. I'll definitely recommend, if you are a reader, you like reading, or you just want to check it out, definitely check out that book. It's a good read and I'm learning a lot from it. So this tip is learning how to take moments to just pause and to just breathe. Let's practice now. How good did that feel? Some of you are like, girl, like, you a therapist? No, but take a moment and moments to pause. So what does this look like practically? What this looks like for me is I work 9:30 to 5:30, right? So during that time, the first 3 hours, depending on what my day looks like, if I have visits or whatever, depending on what it looks like, if it was a day where I was at home and I didn't have to do visits, for example, I will work for the first 3 hours of the day, or 2.5 hours. Then I'll take 15 minutes to move from the screen, maybe go and get a drink, and just take a moment to pause. What does it look like if it is a day when I have visits and I'm just running around everywhere and I'm coming back home late? It looks like me not looking at my phone when I get at home. It means me actually sitting down for at least 15 minutes. This is something I've actually been practicing for a good 3 years. 15 minutes of just silence and just taking a moment to just pause. Sometimes it makes me a bit sleepy, you know, but generally I've just found that it's really good to keep me going, and it's really good for my mental health to just take moments of pause, especially if there's a lot going on, like numerous emails, like just chaos happening in placements, children running away, all of this stuff. Sometimes I think we're just in life, in London life or city life, you're just used to, you know, running around and just so busy and never really taking a moment to just take your time and chill. So take a moment and just pause. My next tip is utilize supervisions. So I say this particularly for those of you who are going into your ASYE, and even if you're not, utilize your supervisions. It will get to a point like me. I think I don't even know how long I am into my ASYE now. Maybe going to 8 months. I think now 8 months. But sometimes you can get in into the rhythm of work that you forget that actually sometimes you need someone to actually give you another perspective on whatever the dilemma or whatever it is that you're working on. So for example, whether that be direct supervision with your manager, or whether that be group supervision with your colleagues, where you can just have that moment to just reflect, take in what's going on, get advice and support from other people. But make sure you utilize supervisions. They are important. Sometimes I know those of you like supervisions where I get extra work, no thank you. Yeah, I completely understand, because sometimes it is like, oh, supervisions just where I'm just getting extra work. But it does help, and it makes you become a skilled practitioner. It makes you develop your knowledge. It makes you think outside the box on some things, and it makes whoever's pouring into you also, you know, pour into you and give you advice, support, whatever they can give, whatever they can give. So my next tip is, don't be complacent. Don't be a complacent social worker or practitioner. Do not be complacent. Advocate. If you're in children and families, advocate for children and families. Advocate for young people. If you're in mental health, just advocate for service users when you can. And I'm going to give you an example why I even mentioned this as a tip. So when I was on my 100-day placement, I remembered I was in a meeting for a young offender, but a looked after child. He was running county lines and all kind of stupidness just everywhere, just causing me stress. Yeah. And I had a meeting at a young offenders place. I think it was in Barking or somewhere, but yeah, and we had a meeting. And in the meeting, remember, I'm probably at this point only 2 months into my 100-day placement. I wasn't really confident to speak up about anything, but I was in this meeting and all these professionals was mentioning a number of strategies and saying a lot of things that I just didn't agree with. And the person that was actually chairing that meeting, who was one of the managers in the youth offending team, I was just sitting there because I was just learning so much from her that I didn't or hadn't heard of before. And I remembered after the meeting, I pulled her aside and I just said, oh, you know, like, I'm on my 100-day placement and I just wanted to say thank you because I learned quite a lot from you in that session. However, I didn't really agree with some of the points she made. And then she said, no, you did. And then I said, I didn't. And she said, but the fact that you sat there and you didn't voice your opinion or say that you disagreed with anything subsequently meant that you did agree. And then I just thought, like, that's something that stuck with me all of this time, because I just thought saying nothing is still saying something. So with me saying advocate, stand up for your young people, children, whoever it is, adults, whoever it is you're working for, really use opportunities when you do get them, not to complain, not to bash another professional, not to be argumentative, but do advocate. That's what we are social workers for. We're meant to be speaking on behalf of people who are sometimes unable to speak for themselves or voice their wishes, their opinions themselves. And leading on to my next point, which I believe is tip number 8. We're not saviors though. We cannot save. We're not saviors. And I think this is something I struggled with at the beginning of the journey, because I came into it so passionate and zealous and wanting to do everything and help everyone. And I had a teacher say, Seth, calm down. Like, you may be, out of your whole journey, you may be able to impact about 2 people, you know. And I think sometimes that can be a harsh reality that we need to really learn early on in the journey to guard us from what may come, or the thank yous that we may never get, and you know, where we're not appreciated later on in the journey. But we're not saviors. We can't save everyone. We can do our best to advocate for people. We can do our best to, if it's an extra visit you need, or if it's something, any support that you need, we can do our best. But ultimately, we're not saviors. We can't. Sometimes there's some people, some families, some children, some situations that are just going to stay the same. And this will resonate a lot with a lot of people who are in looked after children teams, or are working in LAC or CLA, as the term has changed now, teams, where you're working with children and families for years and you're realizing there's no change. Don't be discouraged. We just are not saviors. But my next tip is, make sure you stay safe. Stay safe. So I know, like, we have lone working policies in our agencies or wherever we work, and yeah, we sign those and we read those, but the reality is, a lot of the times where there's been social workers who, God forbid, have been in circumstances where they don't have help, that policy is not really doing much. But, you know, put things in place for yourself as well as whatever your agency or manager or whatever your team is putting in place, but put additional things. So an example of that is, for me, sometimes when well, it was mainly around the autumn, winter periods when it was very dark, but sometimes when I'm traveling somewhere where I know, okay, it gets a bit quiet around here, I maybe say to a friend, hey, I'm going to message you as well as my manager, or can you stay on the phone with me until I get to a train station? Or, you know, I think we do need like some little tasers or something, just, you know, like police officers have, you know, guns, and like, what do we have? We need some of that too. But stay safe, zip your bag up, you know, be really aware of your surroundings as well, because a lot of the times that I've happened to know, sometimes people you're working with, they got a friend or family or something, someone close by to you that you may never even know of. So be very vigilant and aware of your surroundings as well. Like, I'm not saying walk around like a nervous wreck, like who's behind me, you know, but, you know, be aware of your surroundings and stay safe, because this is, you know, as much as it's a rewarding job, it's also dangerous in some aspects as well, especially when you're dealing with children being taken away, or, you know, anything, or court orders or stuff like that. It can get really sticky for us, so protect yourself, stay safe. My next tip is remember who is the focus of the work. And what I mean by this is, if you're working with children and families, remember that the child is the focus. If you're working with vulnerable adults, disability, remember whoever you're working with, they're at the focus. And I say this because sometimes when you're working with professionals, egos can get in the way. People can, you know, like some people can be so petty, really can be so petty, and fighting and arguing about the wrong thing, or because this initial was spelt wrong. It's not a big deal. Like, you know who I'm talking about. Let's focus on who I'm talking about. Let's try and reach the best outcomes that we can have for this child, because that's why we're doing it, right? That's why we're social workers. That's, you know, that's why we went through university and whatever and got our qualification. So just remember who's at the focus, because there'll be sometimes some things that cause you to be distracted. Some people's ego may get in the way, you know. Some people, like, a lot of things can happen that can sometimes maybe sway your focus a bit. That child can even reject you and be like, you know what, I don't want to see this person. May have you running around the United Kingdom to be looking for them, but just remember who's at the focus. And this leads on to my last point. Stay passionate about why you want to be a social worker. Stay passionate about why you started this journey. Remember, it wasn't, remember, I was gonna say remember what you wrote in your personal statement, but a lot of us, you just write what you think's gonna get you in, but it's not really what you mean. Make myself laugh. Wait, sometimes it's not really what you mean. And I just think we have to remember why we started our journey. If you remember that when you're faced with some situations, it's really going to help you stay passionate, determined. You know, what is your end goal? When you started, did you just say, okay, I want to be a social worker for children and families, or I want to be a social worker for, you know, mental health? Like, was that your end goal? You know, sometimes sit down and reflect and think, actually, what is driving me? Well, I know where I started, but is this even of interest anymore? Is there something else I might be interested in? Because I think the last thing we need is more social workers who are here for the money, and the money is not enough for what you deal with anyway, but here for the money or here for other reasons, and then you end up just messing up the system, messing up the children even more than unfortunately they already are. So just remember why you started the journey, what was your passions, what drove you, and that will just help you in your journey as a successful, ambitious, determined, intelligent, forward-thinking, advocating, child-focused or adult-focused social worker. But I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye.